So I want to talk some more about like what I've learned from living out of a backpack, and specifically what I've learned from living out of my pockets. And there's certain ways in which it changes you. Like I would say there's certain ways of life that are so different from regular life that it changes the way that you view things and how you operate. For example, if you've ever lived on a boat before with multiple people, you'll get to the understanding very quickly that everyone on the boat has to get along, right? Because there's nowhere to go. There's no personal space on a boat really, especially if it's a smaller boat. And everyone just has no choice but to get along. And that's a lesson that you would never learn if you were on not necessarily if you were on a massive boat, you know? And you would never necessarily learn it if you were on land, right? Because if you're on land and someone is bothering you, you can just go somewhere else, right? At least if you're an adult, you can. If you're a child, you're kind of the prisoner of your parents. But if you're an adult, you can get up and walk away, right, and go somewhere else, and be away from the person who's bothering you. But on a boat, there's no such thing as that. And so living on a boat totally changes the way you view things, right? Or, for example, mountain climbing is something that totally changes the way that you view things, because not only do you have to live off of what you can carry with you for multiple days, but you've got to be able to lift yourself up, right? Meaning it's not just enough to be able to carry something across the landscape, you got to be able to carry that up a mountain. So you got to be able to travel far upwards. Similarly, if you're cave diving, there's there's other kinds of things that you would have to learn. Now, these some of these can be very dangerous things that I've described. I mean, I'm not saying that you should go do all of these things, but certain things like learning martial arts, for example, really changes the way that you view certain things, right? Um, I'm not a master of martial arts at all. I'm not going to say I'm some amazing martial arts person. But if it's me up against somebody with no fighting experience, and if they don't have a knife, I'm going to have a much better chance of, if they don't get the first blow on me. If they get the first blow on me, I might be screwed up. But I've been in a couple scraps, and for someone with no fighting experience, I really have a huge advantage over them knowing a little bit of martial arts, right? And there's certain things that martial arts teaches you that just changes the way that you view things the longer that you do it. I didn't do it very long, but the longer that you do it, the more that it changes you, right? And there's just different life experiences that you can have. And there's certain things that you learn from living out of your pockets that just totally changes the way that you view the world and totally changes the way that you operate. And it makes you more resourceful. That's one thing. Like, you become someone who is much more better capable of being able to solve the problem at hand without having to go and get a bunch of stuff to solve it, right? That's not a good way of saying it, but basically, like, you get more of a can-do attitude when you learn how to live out of your pockets, because you're like, no matter what happens, what I have in my pockets right now, plus what I can borrow from other people around me temporarily, that's all that I have to solve this problem. So if I want to have fun, I've got to have fun with what I can have in my pockets or what I can borrow from other people. If I want to make food, I either have to make food from what's in my pockets or from what I can go um, get help from other people. Right? If I'm going to if I'm going to you know if I'm going to do some art, right? I either have to do art with what I have in my pockets or from other people, right? And that's it. So you're stuck with this situation where you are forced to you're stuck with this situation where you're forced to innovate, right? And you're forced to how would you say, when you live out of your pockets, you are forced to view the world in terms of like, how am I gonna do this with what I have with me? And it totally changes the way that you view boredom. You know, when you don't live out of your pockets, it's a lot easier to get bored because you're like, oh, I don't have my gaming computer, or like, oh, I don't have my, whatever. I don't have my art studio. I forgot my drawing tablet at home, or maybe, you know, I don't have a friend to talk to, something like that. You kind of get into this mode. You get into this mode where you're like, I'm going to depend on something external to me to achieve what I want, right? Especially when you learn to live out of your pockets without a backpack, at least, you get to a point where you become enough and you become sufficient, and you make yourself into the person that can solve the problems at hand. And there's all this stuff that you think that you need that you really don't. And it's really a matter of knowledge. Maybe I could make another video about some of the knowledge that comes from it.